Everybody Hates Rand is a Wheel of Time podcast that will contain spoilers for all 14 books. So if you're anti-spoiler, stop this, read all 14 books, and come back. We'll be here, waiting.
Our title is a joke and is meant to be taken as such. Everybody in this context refers to us and our cats. You are free to feel however you want about Rand. He's a fictional character. Please don't DM us.
The world is a mess, Dark One stretching out his hand. The dragon's reborn, the fire's been fanned, but everybody hates Rand. Everybody hates Rand. Everybody hates Rand.
Yep, you get cream for your
Whipped cream.
your trials.
Okay.
Yeah. This is Everybody Hates Rand, your friendly neighborhood Wheel of Time podcast. I'm Emily Dushaw.
And I am Sally Goodger, and I have been working on the transcript, last week's transcript, and we keep talking about things that Rand is saying, so I'll switch to the next person, and instead of writing Emily or Sally, I'll write Rand, and then whatever the person has said, and I keep having to go back and be like, no! He's not here with us. He's not speaking through us.
We are not his vessels.
Eddie is stuck.
Okay. And if we were, we'd be pretty unhappy about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, unfortunately there is more Rand in this section, but what are you gonna do? First we have Perrin in the world of dreams. Physically. In the flesh. As everyone
In the flesh.
keeps saying it, which is sort of a horrific way to put it. He and Gaul enter, and Perrin's like, man, dude, it's whack in here, because everything's getting sucked into the vortex that is Shale Gaul. Perrin's like, I bet it's Rand, so let's just get away from here. So they just go to a different spot and teleport to a different spot. Find a place to stash their stuff because they have actually brought food and supplies, which is, smart.
Mm-hmm.
And Perrin's like, Gaul, I gotta tell you, man, things here are pretty gnarly, so you're really not equipped to fight anyone here, especially Slayer. Because, he's so good, and I've done 2 weeks of training, so I'm his equal.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
And he can do crazy magical things to you. And Gaul's like, I live in the world where people can do crazy magical things to me all the time. Yeah. So I'm not too cut up about it,
Yeah.
And Perrin's like, you're so good and sensible, Gaul, such a noble savage, as it were. Gaul acting as Perrin's sidekick in this, I think it's supposed to be a little bit buddy cop-ish, but it ends up being very much Gaul as Perrin's sidekick.
Yeah, the whole thing feels very patronizing, which is unfortunate, because, Gaul is just behaving normally. He's like, this is not a landscape with which I'm familiar, therefore Perrin will take the lead. Of course I'm not. His perspective of, people do crazy whack shit around me all the time, so, I've got no beef with not fighting Slayer. Yeah. Is pretty funny and, very level-headed. Gaul is a character.
Gaul is the only character in this entire text who seems to have a functioning brain at times.
And just, a healthy understanding of his own limitations.
Yeah, he's also very, focused, which comes out in the world of dreams in terms of him not, changing appearance all the time. We made fun in the past of how women in the world of dreams are constantly changing their dresses because their minds are just so hysterical.
Fleeting.
Like a flock of moths.
Yeah, just going around and around in circles in there.
And Gaul is, I guess, very manly in that he doesn't do that, although I wish I could read it more as, an ale thing of just,
Right.
He's equipped for, combat, so he is, I am focused. But given that he has sort of mastered the, first thing that you need to be in the world of dreams, which is focused and level-headed, I was kind of expecting when I first read this Perrin to give him, a rundown of,
yeah,
here are things you can do. When you dream it, you can make it real.
Yeah.
Blah, blah, blah.
I feel like
Gaul would, if you build it, they will come.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, I feel like Gaul would pick up on things pretty fast, and
Yeah.
it would have been incredibly funny for him to beat Perrin
And
at his
just
own
be like-
game just immediately.
Well, it gets hard.
But he doesn't do that. He just kind of follows Perrin around, like, unquestioningly.
Yeah.
And Perrin's like, we're gonna go through this freaky dome thing. Catch me if I fall. And Gaul's like, okay. Perrin doesn't fall, so Gaul's like, sweet, I can just enter this too. And then faints.
Yeah.
Perrin has to drag him through. And it's like, Gaul, why aren't you being like, hey, what's this that we're doing?
Hey, why did I faint when I walked through this purple dome?
Yeah, just like the unswerving loyalty is kind of, like you said, a little patronizing.
Yeah.
Just like, maybe we could have more of an intellectual interaction with the world of dreams here instead of Gaul just being riding around in Perrin's sidecar, as it were.
It is very... Sidekick is the perfect way to put it. He's not supposed to have really any agency. He's supposed to do what Perrin says, and he's supposed to just be, like, support for when Perrin inevitably needs him an extra set of hands.
Yeah.
So, bummer.
Bummerooski. Anyway, Perrin is like, okay, first I want to investigate the Black Tower because I think I know why we haven't been able to travel there. Again, no one has given us any indication until now that other people have been trying to channel travel there, but whatever. To no one's surprise, they go to the vicinity and find a purple dome. Perrin's like, I got this. They go into the purple dome and are sort of like scouting around. Perrin figures out the epicenter is in this like building installation, which is the same basement where fucking Andrel and the others are being kept.
Yeah.
So he's like, Slayer's gotta be around here somewhere guarding this thing. But who appears is, wouldn't you know it, Lanfear instead? She's like, hey girl, hey. And Perrin's like, hello?
Yeah.
What are you doing here, my good bitch? And she's like, I'm just hanging out. She's like, I want vengeance. And he's like, against Slayer? And you even know him? And she's like, no, not against Slayer, you fucking ingrate. Against the person who caused my imprisonment. So we, the readers, are like, Moradin?
Yeah, what?
Maybe, if she's even being honest about wanting vengeance. But before Perrin can question her further, she just disappears. She keeps looking at the sky and then disappearing, which seems like she tells us, like, he's watching and I need to make sure he doesn't see me, spot me down here with you. But it's a very, like, convenient plot thing to just have Lanfear flitting in and out whenever Perrin has a free moment to talk to someone. You know, she's never there when shit gets real.
Yeah.
But Perrin is like, oh, okay, well, that was odd. And finds out that there are a couple of Ashman also physically in the world of dreams guarding the MacGuffin, whatever it is.
The dream spike.
The dream spike, yes, thank you. And Perrin's like, I don't know how to handle these two, but luckily Lanfear comes back and is like, oh, don't worry,
She rooted them.
She rooted them.
Fork root. They got rooted.
She dosed them with fork root. This chapter is titled Doses of Fork Root.
It should have been titled Rooted, all caps.
Rooted! I'm gonna get zooted! Or rooted!
Rooted. You get rooted.
We meanwhile flashback to Andrel is still in that fucking basement.
He's been in that basement a long time.
He's been in that basement for years, it feels like. He's like, Tovene got turned super fast. Tovene's the Aes Sedai who was bonded to Logain. He's like, Tovene got bonded super fast because here we're introduced to a brand new mechanic that is not surprising given the Wheel of Time world, but it's funny that it's getting, that we're just being told about it now. That if you're going to turn a man, then it's easier if you have 13 Myrdril and 13 women channelers, and vice versa. So Mazrim Tem, up until this point, has just had access to male channelers, of course, just the evil guys from his evil school, which is why turning people like Logain and Amarin is so difficult. But now they have Tovene and some of the other people, and also Grendal in her new ugly bitch form has appeared with some more channelers. So God only knows how many fucking evil people are milling around at this basement.
Yeah.
But Andrel seems to be pretty unsupervised.
Yeah. It also seems like this basement room is ginormous.
Yeah, it's just like a fucking football stadium.
Yeah, it's
down
what it
here.
feels like when Andrel starts explaining it to us.
Yeah. So Andrel's being taken away for yet another session, and they're like, now we've got women, so he's definitely gonna turn, finally. Andrel is getting more and more frantic. He's like, Pavara is really dosed up on Fork Root, but they have not really dosed me because I'm such a low-level channeler that they're just holding a shield on me. So he tricks the little dummy boy who got turned right away, who's like 14 or whatever, tricks him into attacking another bad guy, and that starts a whole scuffle, and his shield gets dropped, so Andrel's able to break out of his bonds and also break Pavara and Amarin out of their bonds, but Pavara's dosed on Fork Root and Amarin is useless.
Yeah.
Basically catatonic at this point, so it's like, I know how to solve this problem, I'll throw a Molotov cocktail.
Yeah. Boom. New problem.
Boom, new problem. You know, he doesn't really have a plan here that's going. He keeps falling back on like, well, once I can channel again, I'll just make a gateway, and then being like, surprise Pikachu face when he can't make a gateway. He's like, if I just try really hard, then I'll make a gateway, because that's what I'm good at, is making gateways. And we're here like, surely Perrin is just going to remove the dream spike at the opportune moment.
My favorite part of this chapter, I mean, there are many incredibly funny things that happen in the scuffle between Andrel and the rest of the Black Tower.
Literally the entire Black Tower. It's Andrel v. everyone.
Yeah, it's what it feels like is, for something happens and Mazrim Tem, like, sees that Andrel's bonds are released. I think it's the murder, like, the little 14-year-old literally murders somebody, so everyone is like, well,
out of the blue.
That's not normal. He sees Andrel is up, and he's like, I've had such enough of you, you're so annoying. And so he shoots balefire at Andrel, and Andrel somehow manages to make a gateway, like the exact size of,
Like a quarter.
like the exact size of the beam of balefire, and that's just like how he gets
Evades
rid of
that.
it.
Yeah.
But like,
Where did it go?
yeah, it's really funny to imagine that, like, across the continent, I mean, it's tragic and horrifying, but, like, across the continent, some, like, farmer turns around and his house has been, like, wiped off.
It's like that scene in BBC Sherlock where the guy gets killed by a boomerang. And it's like the stupidest thing you could fucking imagine. It would have been so funny if Andrel opened the gateway right behind Mazrim Tem, just as he is able to do in a minute.
Yeah.
Bale fired himself in the back of the head.
That would have been really iconic, but no, instead it just gets sent to God knows where.
Yeah, God, I would have killed to be in another. We just like flip over to, I don't know, fucking Barrel Lane.
Yeah.
Just like,
holy shit.
Whoa, hey!
Whoa, hey!
Someone's shooting lasers.
Yeah.
No, so there's this big scuffle. Tem and all his channelers are in the mix. Andrel has like a moment where he's like, I've just got to get through. I've just got to open a gateway. And is like, I'm almost there. And then Tem is like, I'm going to balefire you. And Andrel finally manages to avert that by opening a gateway the exact size, like you said, for the balefire to go away. The problem, of course, is that we are flipping between Andrel and Perrin's point of view, so we know Perrin has not yet even touched the dream spike.
Yeah.
So Andrel is just able to do this because he's Brandon Sanderson's special boy, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. It's really annoying.
Like, we're just, you know, the persistence of the human spirit or whatever.
Yeah, it's more like sheer power of will, which is the sort of running theme of this basement sequence, as we can call it.
Willpower trumps everything, which is a very, like, comforting thing that people like to tell themselves, especially in fantasy texts.
Yeah.
About, like, you can't get turned evil if you have enough willpower. You can hold up under torture if you have enough willpower. Mm-hmm. You can break through magical barriers if you have enough willpower. So it's like a hallmark of the genre.
Yeah.
But it is one of those things that gets annoying when it's repeated often enough. And when the author so clearly favors a character. Like, in the case here, then it just feels like the author doesn't know how to write their way out of the situation that they've concocted. It's especially ironic given that Brandon Sanderson famously is all about, like, magic having rules and those rules having limits that characters should be able to think their way around.
Yeah.
Rather than just sheer powering their way around. Yeah. So, bit of a break in character from good old Brandon.
It's also very annoying because it's like in almost the next section, Perrin turns off the dream spike. So it's like, why didn't we just flip those? And then we're like, okay, it's off. And now we're good to go.
Yeah. So Andrel manages to save himself from Mazrim Tem, and also apparently his most recent attempt at a gateway, when he'd been thinking, like, maybe if I can just travel to the, like, actual building that's up above us, up above the murder basement. Mm-hmm. Apparently he actually did manage to open a small gateway, so sound carried through it. So now the guys up there, who were conveniently good guys, are like, we'll just rush down to the murder basement.
Yeah.
Which was in a labyrinth last time I remembered, but
that doesn't matter.
Whatever.
Don't worry about the warren of tunnels or the collapse that happened.
Where are we?
We're in apparently an enormous underground football stadium sized torture basement where we can just have
some parts are collapsed and that's fine. There's like a break room with a coffee pot.
Yeah, the coffee pot and sort of
and
like
we're
a box of
directly
donuts.
underneath a bunch of good guys.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, just seriously, don't worry about it.
The geography does not matter.
The geography of the basement is truly unknown to us. So, like, a dozen good guys come downstairs and an all-out melee starts. Which is mostly funny because, like, there are still 13 Murdrel here.
Imagine you're one of these good guys.
Yeah.
A gateway opens and you hear that there's creepy murder stuff going on downstairs. And
you
like,
charge downstairs because you're such a good guy.
Yeah, you're so good and solid of character.
You're from the Two Rivers.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You kick open the door. There are 13 Murdrel.
There are 13 Murdrel looking at you, like...
One's eating a donut.
Hey. Yeah. There's 13 Murdrel, plus the ones who are taking their OSHA-compliant breaks.
Yeah, exactly. We gotta stay compliant. Everyone's gotta take their 15,
There are 13 evil women.
13 evil women, an unknown number of evil men.
Plus 2 of the Forsaken.
Yeah.
Mazrim Tem, who's now been promoted, and Grendel, who's been demoted.
Yeah.
By the way, they do bicker, the 2 of them.
Yeah.
Tem's got, like, a gun to Andrel's head, the equivalent, and Grendel and he are just taking the time to argue about stuff. And Tem drops for us. He's like, I've managed to... I'm Daddy's special boy now because I managed to get what he wanted.
It's like, get the keys?
I hold the keys in my hands. And she's like, you actually stole them? And we're like, oh no. The seals, perhaps.
Oh, yeah.
Since perhaps he had a disc-shaped thing he was looking at last time. Anyway. We'll get back to that in a minute. First we go to Perrin, where Lanfear has dosed the guys with fork roots so that Perrin can just walk up and grab the dream spike. And he's like, oh shit, I don't even know how this fucking thing works. And she's like, oh, you just have to push this sequence of buttons. Literally just shows him how to work it.
Yeah. So
now he's got a new weapon in his tool belt, I guess. And he's like, this is so great, but again, why in fuck are you here? And what are you doing? Why are you helping me? And she's like, Well, she keeps being like, I have been so tormented, so tortured. No one has suffered like I have. Now I'm angry, and so I just want to help you, Perrin, because I like you, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, it is confusing. I think understanding it relies a lot on the context we, the reader, have of her previous conversation with Rand, where he's like, you could come back to the good side, and now it feels like she's towing that line a little bit.
Yeah, we're supposed to feel like maybe Lanfear is on a redemption arc type thing. And that she's doing it in the most, like, weird and self-serving way possible by just sort of stalking Perrin through the world of dreams. Yeah.
And Perrin is, like, she's like, woe is me. And Perrin's like, you literally chose to become evil. I don't. And she's like, did I? And it's like,
And he's like, yeah. And she's like, you wouldn't know. You weren't there. And he's like,
where are your receipts, Perrin?
And he's like, okay. Like, credit to Perrin. He's not like, wow, she's so beautiful. Yeah. I simply must take her, no mention of her looks even, really. Yeah. Which is good, finally, to have someone mention Lanfear without going on and on about her perfectly shaped bosom or whatever the hell. Yeah. But he's also just like, clearly something is, I can't trust this woman. Yeah. The problem is that, given enough time, it becomes incredibly boring if, morally ambiguous, as we are supposed to categorize Lanfear now. If she just keeps and keeps and keeps and keeps showing up, and Lanfear, Perrin keeps and keeps and keeps and keeps being like, I don't trust you, go away. Eventually we're going to be like, well, this is just a boring battle of will, like the world's most boring battle of wills, and I just had to watch Andrel in the basement, so I know all about boring battles of wills. Yeah. So something has to give, and it's either going to be Lanfear revealing her true colors, or in some other way proving herself, or Perrin's eventually going to be like, you've done enough, and so I now trust you on some level.
I absolve you.
So that's the sort of edging that we're playing with.
Gross. Ew.
And what's annoying is that we have to get to that sort of finish line in some way. But until then, Lanfear's just going to be hanging around.
That's fun.
Isn't it fun? They do have a conversation about turning, where she's like, yeah, listen to this fucked up shit. And Perrin's like, that seems incredibly upsetting and wild. Like, people don't have a choice whether they can channel, so it sucks that they just have this horrific loophole. And she's like, well, they could have chosen to be stilled. And he's like,
Hey, bestie.
He's like, I don't really think that's a choice at all. And she's like, well, no one said the choices are good, but you do have choices. Bye. Yeah. And you're like, what? I don't know if this is supposed to be a metaphor for something in real life, but it's fucking depressing. Yeah. Slayer hasn't showed up any of this time. So Perrin's like, let's just wait around here for a little while, Gaul, see if this draws him out. And if he doesn't, then we'll just go hunting for him. Meanwhile, in the basement, for some godforsaken reason, Mazrim Tem and all the bad guys flee. I don't know how they've at all been overpowered by 12 Two Rivers guys and Andrel.
Yeah, Andrel uses Emily's idea to the channelers start firing at these guys, and Andrel opens a gateway in front of them and a gateway behind them, so they all beef it through their own.
Oh yeah, and then he starts like opening gateways under them so that they just fall away. So they didn't flee. I shouldn't say that, but Grendel did flee. But
yeah, Grendel's like, no.
Grendel's like, bye, bitch.
But yeah, it is just like, to your point, like that is sort of needlessly harping on logistics. But like, to your point, it's more fantasy and specifically kind of male fantasy fulfillment here that like Andrel, he has overcome his battle of wills. He has used his gateways to get support. And now there's this moment that made me like laugh out loud earlier where he's like, it's like Andrew looked at Mazrim Tem and was overcome with fury because the Black Tower doesn't belong to Mazrim Tem, it belongs to we the people. And so it's just like got this weird like revolutionary workers
like,
uniting.
We're taking it back from you. Yeah. And it's like, it never belonged to anyone but him. Yeah. You can't take it back.
Like, it just, I'm all for a workers' revolution, you know, but just the vibe is very much like, we did it. We, the few, defeated the many and the powerful through not only this well-timed, you know, rescue, but also specifically through Andrel's incredibly overpowered skill. I know everyone keeps being like, Andrel can't do anything, and it's like, using gateways this way, this effectively, this powerfully is incredibly useful and like a little OP.
Yeah, like in gaming mechanics, it's like if Andrel only had access to a couple of 7th or 8th level spells,
yeah,
you would still be pretty fucking
dangerous.
That's incredibly OP. Notably, Andrel gets out of all of this without any assistance from Pavara.
Yeah, that's
so
the
we've
other thing.
we've set up their whole bond to be like, well, of course now together they're going to be stronger, but Andrel doesn't need Pavara except to sort of like mutter at each other telepathically. Mm-hmm. He has to rescue her still.
Yeah, of course.
So boring.
But we're out of the basement.
We're out of the basement. The Black Tower is liberated from its oppressors, I guess. Because Mazrim Tem has now been sent hurtling into the stratosphere. I don't know.
It pushes against belief quite a lot to know that there are potentially 13 to 26 Murdril in here if we have 2 working groups, and then they were all just like, it's fine to leave.
And they're like,
Mazrim Tem is like, this is not a salvageable situation, when it's like, kill Andrel and the situation becomes incredibly salvageable. I don't understand the cut and run tactic here. I mean, I do. It's plot stuff. We can't kill Mazrim Tem just yet.
Mm-hmm. It's just silly fighting, you know, where no one can actually die because the characters involved here are too important.
Yeah.
Mazrim Tem, Grendel, Andrel for some reason.
Again, I know I keep saying this, but it would have been actually so funny if Andrel got fired by Mazrim Tem.
Just
If
died.
Mazrim Tem was just like, I've had enough of this.
I've had enough. You're like, bye.
Bye. Okay, anyway, that's enough of Andrel.
Sadly, we have to go to Matt. And Rand, sort of. We catch up with Matt as he is literally scaling the walls of the palace in Ebu Dar. He's intent on making his way up to Tylen's old bedroom, because he's like, that's the fanciest bedroom in the place, so surely that's where Tuon will be. Just a whole lot of him climbing, making jokes, stuff like that.
I just want to kick off this chapter by saying the Rand section is almost predominantly about him coming to terms with losing a hand, which is funny that we're still doing this. Not once does Matt suffer any type of consequence by having limited depth perception by only having one eye. So
he's free climbing he free climbs 4 stories.
4 stories with a staff strapped to his back and a single eye. And not once does he mention that this is extra difficult because he only has one eye. So
nope.
This chapter, if I could put it in the kindest terms, is working on incredibly unbalanced scales in terms of disability politics between the 2 point of view characters. So
yeah, Matt does keep getting his missing eye referenced by people. Yeah. They keep being like, hey, what happened to your face?
Yeah. What?
And he's like, well, stop calling me out for having a different face.
Which is a fair point.
And they're just like, it's only cosmetic.
Yeah.
What has happened to Matt, which ultimately makes his sacrifice meaningless, as we have said before. He scales the building, makes it up to this bedroom, and almost gets shot by Seleucia, who, of course, is like, yeah, Tuon never sleeps here because you think you're so smart. Every assassin also knows that this is where she would sleep, so I'm just here camped out waiting for killers to come. And I'm like, when do you sleep?
Seriously.
They have a long, annoying conversation, but eventually Matt gets from her that Tuon is down, like, in the gardens or something. And Seleucia, just like every other Shanshan he's talked to, is like, yeah, you don't need to take it seriously that this one guy's trying to kill her. He doesn't mean it. Mm-hmm. And Matt's like, shut up. I know my business.
Okay, girl.
I must rescue her.
Whatever.
And Seleucia's like, okay, whatever. Here, there's a secret passage down to ground level, conveniently. And he's like, oh, word? Sweet.
Yeah.
Why, yes.
Why, yes.
Then we flip over to Rand as he goes to visit Tam and is like, here, Dad, I got you this sword. I don't remember where this sword fucking came from. Is it the one Aviendha gave to him?
I can't remember. I have no idea. It could be the one Aviendha gave to him. It does reference it being like a black sword or a black sword holder. Sheath is what that's called.
Black sword holder.
Which I thought was different colors than the one Aviendha gave him, but I'm terrible with details, as we know.
No, I can't keep track of Rand's weapons, especially because the fact that he carries a sword has been meaningless for
books.
Not even before he lost his hand. It wasn't really relevant that he could use the sword because he just channeled. Which is what he says to Tam. He's like, I don't need a sword. Obviously, I'm a channeling boy. But here you should have one because your old one beefed it.
Yeah.
And Tam's like, that's so sweet, but I also never use a sword. Not really my thing anymore. And Rand's like, take it, Papa, as a token of my love for you.
Yeah.
And Tam's like, okay. Dramatic ass bitch.
Yeah.
Tam's like, you're clearly going through something, so why don't we go out and, like, work out our problems, man style, by working out. And Rand's like, I'd love that, Papa. So, Papa! So they go out to the sparring grounds, and first Tam, like, shows us that he's still good with swords by moving through the sword forms.
Yeah. Classic.
With his fancy new sword. Then he's like, hey, why don't you join me? And tosses Rand a practice sword. And Rand's like, I don't know if you know this, but I only have one hand. And Tam's like, yeah, you can still use a sword with only one hand. And Rand's like, I'll try, I guess, Papa. So they start sparring. Rand's like, oh, this is actually quite difficult because I've trained myself how to use a sword with two hands. And so reflexively, I want to use my missing hand for the sword. But wouldn't you know it, Tam's not having any trouble. He must have practiced using just one hand. And Rand iconically is like, well, I'm not going to, like, get all the practice of using just one hand in one session. I'm not going to master this ability in one night. And then he promptly masters the ability.
In one night.
He's like, wow, I get so much better as soon as I just, like, willpower my way through my self-pity and sort of feeling upset and frustrated about not having a hand. So, wouldn't you know it?
Willpower is the winner of the day. You can willpower your way out of any type of disability if only you have a comforting father figure there to lead you through it via the power of swords.
He's like, I'm not even a son with his father. I'm a student with the master. Notice me, senpai.
Yeah, literally.
He's just like, this is just this transcendent moment of men using swords.
Yeah.
Isn't it so beautiful? It's silly. It's a silly little...
Like, I'm so happy for Rand. Everyone needs to work through... Becoming disabled is obviously an incredibly difficult thing. And is something that deserves attention and the ability to grieve it and work through it. I'm glad that there is a scene to that effect in the book at all. But because it is done in such a, like, ridiculously capital M man way, it's just like... What if you, like, went to therapy?
Yeah, Rand mentions, like, well, I've mastered all of the other things that I would normally do with two hands, and now I just manage with one hand, and sword fighting is the only hobby that I've had to let go because I now only have one hand. And I'm like, it's so frustrating, though, that we just, like, skipped over the things that would be really hard to do with one hand. Frankly, I don't care if Rand can never sword fight again.
Yeah, as he doesn't in general.
Yeah, as we just said, Rand's sword fighting has not been, like, a relevant thing for books before he lost his hand, so it doesn't feel like a casualty of his disability, it just feels like a casualty of the plot. You know, it was no longer relevant, so they stopped doing it. So it feels like trying to overcorrect for something that Brandon Sanderson recognized was clearly missing. You can't just chop off a character's hand and then have them
be fine,
which Rand seemed to be. But also, yeah, because it's too little, too late, in my opinion.
Yeah, and again, not to beat a dead horse, but it's like apparently Matt can have his eye ripped out and we don't need to talk about it at all.
Absolutely nothing.
So, yeah, it's just back to this sort of like verisimilitude of if you're going to have a character with a disability, disability affects people's lives every single day in a variety of ways. For some people, it affects every single thing that they do and every single decision that they make. If you're going to commit to that and just have it come out in the writing of what that character is doing, day-to-day stuff, like Rand picking up a cup with one hand or having to have people help him carry things around. Like it we can't just like have this scene and like check box, okay, it's fine. Rand has
we
one
have
hand.
acknowledged Rand's one-handedness.
Yeah,
It's annoying. Back to Matt as he locates Tuon in the gardens where she's just like moving through her own sword forms, her Tai Chi
stuff, yeah.
And you know, she's surrounded by bodyguards, but Matt notices that a gray man is approaching, you know, the classic, there's a guy, wait, no, there isn't a guy, wait, there is a guy. And he's like, I'll just throw a knife at this guy. So he, goes to throw a knife, but like breaks a twig or something. So Tuon hears him and like whips around, sees him throwing a knife apparently at her, but just turns around to see who's behind her. And Matt doesn't hit him dead on, so he escapes eventually. It's, I will say, in my opinion, I think a cute romantic moment. It is somewhat negated by the fact that Matt then goes out of his way to tell us why it's romantic.
Yeah.
You know, we couldn't just like let the subtlety of that speak for itself.
Yeah.
But then, of course, Matt and Tuon actually talk and are annoying as usual. Like, Matt comes trotting up and is like, I'm just here to rescue you, you know? She's like, don't need to be rescued, but thanks, I'll have you teach my bodyguards how to fight these creepy monster things. It's just their classic, like, she's like, are you back to be the prince now? And he's like, I don't want to be a fucking prince. And she's like, too bad. We got married. Yeah. And he's like, do you even love, but this whole time been like, do I love her? And he's like, do you love me? And she's like, no. She's like, maybe I could. Maybe I'm glad you're back. And that's supposed to be this big concession for their romance of maybe she has feelings for him that she's not telling him. Maybe she will grow to love him, blah, 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 blah. And Matt's just like, yeah, that's fine. And they have sex in this garden.
Yeah.
It's sort of in public.
Yeah.
It's obviously fade to black, but that is the implication.
Yeah, Tuon starts taking her clothes off. Not randomly. Matt says, like, I'm gonna kiss you or whatever. And she's like, here I am naked. And it's like, why did you get fully nude? My stomach hurts really bad. Why did you get fully nude? What are you doing?
Yeah, like, what?
So silly. I agree. I think in general the scene is really cute where she looks behind to be like, Matt would never throw a knife at me. What's going on? That's really charming, and under entirely different contexts, with like Tuon being an almost entirely different character, I would be like, romance, I love this.
Yeah,
it's really cute. But yeah, they're just so annoying to each other immediately after, and it's like, could one or both of you just get over yourselves already?
Yeah.
And admit that you are in a relationship with someone that you care about. Matt makes gestures towards that, but it's just like full of jokes again.
Yeah. Tuon is like, I'm only with you because of the omens and also because I need to have an heir. And then immediately has sex with him, so we can assume that perhaps she will conceive based on this one union don't it always seem to go.
You always get pregnant on the first time.
You sure do. Yeah, this is them consummating their marriage, I guess. That's another sort of like checkbox thing I think that people had before this book came out, was like, it would be weird if Matt and Tuon got married, parted, and then didn't see each other again to have any sort of like, hey, what's that word? Where you sort of clarify the situationship.
Oh, a DTR?
Yeah,
Define
DTR.
the relationship.
we were like, we need them to DTR, and this is as close as we're getting, is Matt being like, neither of them really admitting that they have feelings for each other, but they clearly do, and clearly the fact that Tuon is the empress of a fascist empire is irrelevant.
Of course it's irrelevant, and we're supposed to forget it consistently. Just be like, Tuon is not a dangerous criminal against humanity. I don't know what you would call that. She's not that at all. She's just a girl. And,
standing in front of a boy.
Yeah, she's just a girl boss standing in front of a boy.
A one-eyed boy being like,
do you want to have sex publicly in this garden while all my bodyguards watch?
They can hear. Matt's like, I'm not shy, and I'm like, you should be.
And also, like, Matt is another thing. Yeah. It's just, like, it feels a little out of character for Matt to be like, it's fine that Tuon's 97 bodyguards could hear us fucking in this garden where almost anybody who in this side of the palace could look out and see us. But
yeah, Matt was famously traumatized by how many people knew about his and Tyland's relationship, and they weren't even, like, witnesses to it necessarily.
So it's just like, what is this now?
Yeah, just totally out of character for Matt. Totally skimming over the more virulent parts of Tuon's character for the sake of romance. And that's just sort of where it is with the, like, Matt and Tuon aspect of the Shanshan Empire, is that their relationship is supposed to be so cute and so romantic to us that we can skim over the realities of what the Shanshan are doing. We're just supposed to be like, Matt is representing this union of the Shanshan Empire, we can overcome our differences, blah, 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 blah. So it's putting a lot of narrative weight on the shoulders of a character who is not equipped, especially under Brandon Sanderson's direction, to handle that.
Yes.
Like, Matt doesn't take it seriously. Matt doesn't take anything seriously at this point. He should be taking the last battle seriously, but for some reason, he's ditched all his character development to come here.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't really know what else to say about it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that pretty much covers it. It's just bad. It feels really hollow. The two of them ring really hollow, at least to me and my experience of reading them. And it's just, I don't care about this romance, and I especially don't care about it about a third of the way into the last book. Like, I want Matt on the battlefield. There is finally a reference to the fact that the Prince of the Ravens is typically the commander-in-chief of the Shanshan army, so we start getting gestures toward Matt creating his own significant force to bring to the table.
Yeah, presumably now Matt is going to have his own army to bring to the last battle in the form of the Shanshan, again signifying that sort of union between Shanshan and the rest of the world. So you're right, it does gesture toward that, but again, we're fully a third of the way into the book. Pretty wild.
Yeah, and it's just like, still the last battle isn't really happening. Like, I know we've got 4 separate fronts that we are fighting on, but like, those are not the last. I mean, I know the whole thing is the last battle, but the last battle, as promised, is Rand versus the Dark One.
Yeah.
And the fact that we're just like, did you remember that Rand lost a hand? I'm like, yes, I remember that Rand lost a hand.
Get to the...
Can we go? I'm Moiraine. Can we go to Shale Goal?
Yeah, Moiraine's like,
expeditiously.
Oh my god. Yeah, Rand keeps being like, I wish all these people didn't have to die. And Moiraine's like, maybe fewer people would die if you would just go fight the Dark One.
Yeah, he's like, some of you may die while I linger and lament all of my feelings about you dying. But that is a risk I'm willing to take.
My dad issues and whatever the hell. Yeah, we're having a lot of characters just sort of taking care of their own personal shit.
Yeah. While
the world is at stake. Okay. Wild. Next time we'll read another couple chapters, of course. In those next 2 chapters, we will have Rand finally do one of the things he promised to the world leaders, which is go and meet with the Shanshan. Of course, Matt will be present, so that will maybe change things slightly, but the long-awaited second meeting between Rand and Tuon, I guess.
Long-awaited, not desired.
Let's skip it. That's what's on the docket, though.
Barf.
Thanks for listening. Thanks to Glenna McKenzie for our theme song. Thanks to our patrons on Patreon and our followers on social media.
Yes. You guys are the best. Thank you so much. I'm trying to think of a sign off real fast. Give me a minute. What's a fun Bridgerton fact we can share? I mean, the whole show is insane. There are so many plot points in Bridgerton, depending on what Emily cuts out. We are watching Bridgerton. Predominantly for Nicola Coughlan, I believe is her name, the wonderful actress from Dairy Girls.
Yeah, we love Dairy Girls.
We love Dairy Girls, and Nicola is been very public and very vocal about her support for Palestine and continuously wears her Artists for Ceasefire pin at all of her events while she's promoting Bridgerton, which I think is incredibly cool. So we're showing her a little bit of love. But the show is objectively insane. It is like Regency era courting, but like many of the plot points, at least in the first season, revolve around the fact that like women are not given sex education, like literally at all, to the point where the main female character does not understand the mechanics of what it takes to conceive a child, and for a long time therefore considers her husband barren when he is in fact just using the withdrawal method consistently, and they are having a lot of sex. So
I find it really heartwarming how they always achieve climax simultaneously.
Yes, of course. After like
in
3 minutes.
In missionary style. Okay.
Okay, cut out as much of that as you need to.
Goodbye.
Bye.